Okay, Javi Lobby, what's going on? It's your boy Javier with the Javier show. Make sure you say it twice. All right, y'all. So we got to discuss something because we got a comedian named Stephen Colbert who has a solution for each and every one of you. And if you haven't had the time, I know life can be very busy, but sometimes you got to stop everything that you're doing so that you can tune into some of these comedians and they can tell you the solutions to your problems. And Stephen Colbert has the solution for you about mass shootings in America, and I think that he wanted to bless us and gift us this wisdom and knowledge that only he has been able to grasp. So I'm going to pull up exactly Stephen Colbert's conversation concerning guns in America and about the shooting in Texas, and let's see what his solution is.
Welcome one, welcome all to The Late Show. I'm your host, Stephen Colbert. Now, lovely to be in here with all of these beautiful people here this evening. You out there, I've never met most of you out watching the show out in TV land, but I'm guessing, like me, you're still trying to process yesterday's mass shooting in Uvalde, Texas. If you're heartbroken and if you're frustrated, you're not alone. Americans have witnessed gun tragedy after gun tragedy. And while it can be argued that there are many reasons, we all know the biggest reason for the tragedy is the gun.
All right, let's take a second to understand how he phrases this. He takes the time to go and say, we all know. There is an assumption on his part that every single person knows that the problem is the gun. You got to watch how they say these things because they are inferring what other people know. And it's common sense. They always use this mindset of common sense as if you don't get what we have here or don't understand what I'm saying, then you are unreasonable or you do not have common sense.
Many reasons. We all know the biggest reason for the tragedy is the gun.
Now, I rewinded that and I wanted to play it again because understand exactly what he's saying here. The biggest reason was the gun. So the gun was what got itself up, drove itself to that school and committed that mass shooting? Or was it a person behind that gun? A mentally unstable person, a person going through a lot of stuff in their life who decided to take their anger and frustration out on children and other adults, right? But the real reason, the big reason was the gun. How do you even begin? In a way, what he's doing is relieving responsibility from the 18-year-old who did what he did. What he's doing is lessening the responsibility of a person for going to commit a tragedy by ultimately blaming the gun.
And right now, the United States has approximately 400 million firearms, which is more than 40% of the total guns in the entire world. That stat's even more harrowing considering that we have 100% of the world's Floridas.
Now, listen, I know that he quoted that stat as some kind of shock. We have 400 million firearms in America, but what he's doing in all reality is making his argument illegitimate. He's already defeated his argument because if the gun is the problem, then you would expect to see at least 200 million, 150 million people who own firearms, whoever who owns these firearms, committing these mass shootings. But with 400 million guns in America, how many people who own those firearms actually go out and commit mass shootings? So it's only inferred that the gun itself is not ultimately responsible for what took place. But they can't process that.
There's a simple, if extremely difficult solution. Reduce the number of guns. We've done it before, and it worked.
Okay, here is another talking point, something that Joe Biden uses that, well, we had an assault weapons ban or assault rifle ban at one point, and shootings went down. Like I said in another video when I discussed the shooting, there are multiple facets on why crime rates or gun violence go up and down. And in order to try to truly understand it, simplifying it to the very, very smallest detail and making it seem as if that was the cure, I don't think any social scientist would ever begin any estimation about the cause and effect of something being reduced down to one cause. So correlation does not equal causation. And in order for him to make that statement, I would like to see the information that actually proves that was the case. And what else could have possibly have been at the time? Because we do know that the crime bill also locked up a lot of people, and they had a major crime wave back in the day. And that was meant to tackle crime. There are many different moving components at the time that may have caused a decrease in gun violence, especially mass shootings.
Joe Biden knows that.
When we passed the assault weapons ban, mass shootings went down. When the law expired, mass shootings tripled.
That's not complicated. If there's less of something that is built to kill people, fewer people will be killed with that thing. That's why these...
Okay, so here's the problem. The weapons that Joe Biden banned did not contribute to the majority of the shootings in America. Most gun violence is committed by handguns, hand pistols, and they're not calling for the ban of handguns. So Joe Biden was referencing rifles and things of that sort, trying to go after the AR-15, but what they really don't understand is most gun violence is committed by handguns, which is why people make the argument, if you ban AR-15s or AK-47, whatever it is, then it's only a matter of time until you come for the handguns, which in turn, you're basically going to end up restricting my Second Amendment to the point where I no longer have it.
These days, you see so few mass catapult attacks. Now, there are things Congress could do right now. Congress just refuses to do them. For instance, the Senate could pass H.R. 8, a bill that was passed by the House over a year ago, which would close loopholes in the background checks law.
What else is in that bill? I would like for him to discuss what else is in the bill, because sometimes these bills have a current of different things that they're asking for, and it might be rejected for certain other aspects, but they do this a lot. They will load these bills up with so many different things and propose it, and then they can handpick and cherry pick whatever it is they want to say. They're against this. They're against X, Y, and Z. And it would be nice to have somebody on the other side that will explain why somebody may be against certain legislation against guns. And just be realistic. We're not going to get that.
It's being held up by Senate Republicans, possibly, because background checks are supported by only 90% of voters.
All right, so there is a federal background check implemented in America, whereas if you go to a licensed federal arms dealer, that they have to run a federal background check on you before you're able to legally purchase a firearm. So just to say that 90% of people are for background checks, yes, and many of us go through background checks to get firearms. So it's a bait and switch. What they want is universal background checks, and that's a totally different issue. And he's not going to elaborate on that. There's a difference, though.
90%. The only thing more popular than background checks is Dolly Parton riding a giant corgi, bringing you free ice cream.
I don't see how he got to the background checks. He talked about reducing firearms, and then he quickly jumped to background checks. And he never really explained how he got from point A to point B. So if you're for background checks, then why do you have to reduce guns? If all you want is background checks, then why is the gun a problem?
And birthday sex with free ice cream. One man's frustration erupted on camera earlier today. Texas Governor Greg Abbott and his lieutenant governor held a press conference to discuss the shooting. About 15 minutes in, they were interrupted by Abbott's gubernatorial rival, Beto O'Rourke.
He's not really a rival. He doesn't stand a chance. Beto O'Rourke is, he's definitely desperate for attention. He's always been. And we noticed that when he was running for president. He would say anything to get attention, even if it was outlandish. Hell yeah, we're going to ban your AR-15s. Hell yeah, we're going to take your guns away. He didn't stand a chance running for president, and he doesn't stand a chance in Texas as well.
At this time, I will pass the mic to Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick.
And I also want to point out the fact that they were having this session for the victims of the family to discuss exactly what took place and to, make their condolences and to actually get the details out there and, you know, flush out some of the details that were surrounding the situation. And here comes Beto O'Rourke. Wrong place, wrong time. But here we are. Hero of the Republic.
Excuse me. Excuse me.
Sit down.
You're out of line and an embarrassment.
Sit down and don't play this stuff.
Next shooting is right now, and you're doing nothing.
That's not true, Beto. They're not doing nothing. They're yelling at you for pointing out that they're doing nothing.
No, they're yelling at you because you're interrupting them. They are trying to conduct business. They are trying to do something, and you are standing up in the middle of a press conference and literally causing a disturbance.
Now,
how can we deal in a society where people are just so dishonest? Why are people so dishonest? And the fact that you try to point out that they're dishonest is something wrong with you. You're the problem because they just miss us. They don't hear exactly what they're saying. They're not interested in finding solutions. They're only interested in you listening to them. Remember what I said. They're not interested in finding solutions. They're only interested in you listening to them.
some people, you maybe, you might call this a stunt, but all he's doing is calling bull on their lie. The lie that they will do anything that might upset the gun lobby that lines their pockets. Another liar on that stage getting yelled at by Beto was Texas Attorney...
What about, I want him to deal with the fact that there are millions of Americans in this country who own firearms and actually support the Second Amendment. What about them? What are their excuses? Because let's be honest, you're not just going after the gun lobbyists. And even if you were just going after the gun lobbyists, you're going after the gun lobbyists because ultimately what you want to do is restrict the Second Amendment to the point where you can no longer truly actually practice it. And what they don't tell you is by restricting firearms and making it very, very, very hard for you to get a firearm, what they do is actually harm the people who need it the most. People who live in poverty, people who live in communities where there are gang members and people committing illegal activities, and they don't have the money and they don't have the means of going through hoops and bounds trying to buy a firearm just to protect themselves, or somebody dealing in a domestic violence situation. But they don't tell you this. They don't talk about this. And it's a reason they are not interested in a solution.
General Ken.
This guy's a joke.
He went on the Fox News last night and pinched out this gem.
We can't stop bad people from doing bad things. They're going to violate murder laws. They're not going to follow gun laws. I've never understood that argument.
I got to say, laws are pointless is a bold position for the Attorney General.
No, what he's trying to say, and the real argument is, even if you pass laws against it, what you're ultimately doing is you're hurting the people who want to use their Second Amendment to protect themselves and do it the right way, but you're not going to deter the people who's already breaking the laws. Right? We already have background checks. We already have legal restrictions. There are states that have strict gun laws, like Chicago, New York, where mass shootings and shootings every week can happen. So it's not necessarily the laws that are going to stop it. It's what other measures can we reasonably put in place to restrict these things and stop it from happening while still protecting the Second Amendment and those who choose to practice and, abide the law.
I think he just announced the purge, but perhaps...
And of course, he's a comedian. I'm not coming here to expect this man to give a full, detailed, or honest summary of the real gun situation in America. But there are so many people who listen to these comedians and people like this who are really not as informed as they should be. And they think that this guy is speaking some kind of truth, that he's somehow offering a real solution. And he's not. He's not.
But perhaps the nothingest nothing that was ever nothinged came from Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, seen here with her loved one and her husband. Shortly after the shooting, Greene tweeted, "Our nation needs to take a serious look at the state of mental health today. I agree. Starting with Georgia's 14th district." Now, it's not fair to say Republicans have absolutely no solutions. They actually have some pretty bad solutions, like this one.
One of the things you've talked about is arming teachers. Is that a possibility in Texas?
I absolutely think it's a possibility. I think that's something that should be done.
Come on. A teacher's job is not to use a gun. A teacher's job is to teach. and to rap about Shakespeare.
And to indoctrinate your children. But also, let's point out the fact here that if I was a teacher and somebody was going to come in the school and commit a mass shooting, I would personally want to have a firearm on me to protect the children and to protect myself as well. I mean, I'm pretty sure that there are going to be teachers who would be willing to do so if it would protect them. Now, the second thing is we can point out the fact that we live in a society with millions of guns. We do. Nothing he's saying is going to get rid of those millions of guns. Even if we stop selling guns right here and right now, there are still going to be people out there with guns, firearms, and a means of getting them. That's just the truth. So instead of dealing with reality and coming up with solutions based on reality, we're going to pretend that we can live in a world where guns never existed and just get rid of all the guns. And you can't. His argument only works if there was never millions of guns on the streets in America in the first place.
I'm Mr. Smith, and I'm here to say Caesar got stabbed et tu, Brute?
You know, it's hard for me to even watch this because this is based on the shooting of young children in the elementary school. And at the same point, we're talking about a very serious subject. And I don't think if he's a comedian, his job is to tell jokes. I get it. But in this moment of time, I think that it's very insensitive to be trying to make jokes at a time like this, especially if you're going to be taking a hard notion on a very serious topic in America to the point where people are really trying to figure out what to do here. And to say that you have a simple solution to a big problem, but all I hear is laughs.
It's not just the teachers who these cowardly dipsticks think should be armed.
These are individuals who are unpaid volunteers who would be happy to volunteer their time to go safeguard schools.
To me, it's a simple solution. We have retired military, retired law enforcement that I am sure we can come up with a way to ensure that every child in every school is protected with on-site armed trained officers.
There is no reason why we can't put retired police officers, ex-military, and put them at least in every school.
Yes, that is their brilliant...
Okay, I don't think we should put them in schools. What I think, if there are people who want to volunteer to protect those children, I think they should set up a perimeter around the school and to look for any suspicious behavior, walkie-talkies, any kind of behavior that seems off, and communicate with one another in order to best protect those children before mass shooting even gets to the school. So there doesn't have to be guns within the school. There can just be a tight-knit perimeter around the school that the kids may not even be really aware of or paying attention because they're in the school learning. That would be my solution, and I'm pretty sure they would disagree with that as well. But let's see what Colbert has to say.
Answer to our epidemic of gun violence. Arm the seniors. They shouldn't be hard to find. They're all members of the AAR-15.
Now, that's just disrespectful. I mean, you know, what?
But more guns aren't the only terrible solutions Republicans are offering up. Here's former NYPD Detective Pat Brosnan on Hannity last night.
We need to install man traps, a series of interlocking doors at the school entrance that are triggered by a tripwire. The tripwire can be a gunshot, broken glass, a manual switch tossed by a school employee, and it traps the shooter like a rat. It's tripwires, it's man traps.
Yes, it's tripwires, it's man traps. It's stairs covered.
I'm not too familiar with exactly what the guy was speaking on, so I can't elaborate on that. What I would say is I would have some concerns, like exactly how does that work and how do you prevent it from actually hurting a child or something if a loud noise goes off or something like that. I just don't know enough about it to offer my support or disagreement with that.
In tiny toy cars. It's crushed up Christmas ornaments on the floor. It's hot irons on pulleys that swing and hit the bad guys in the face. It's cardboard cutouts dancing in front of the windows. I saw it all in that documentary with Joe Pesci.
He really thinks that that liberals are the only ones who have any solution. It's a black and white thinking. It's a black and white fallacy. It's like we have all the good solutions, and any solutions that the people on the right side of the aisle offer must be bogus. But I'm very curious, and maybe he knows more about guns than anybody else. Maybe Stephen Colbert is a gun expert, and maybe he's a tactical expert, and he knows about the history of firearms. Maybe he knows all of that. I'm not getting that from this conversation, and of course he's telling comedy right now, I guess. I mean, sorta. I mean, is he? Because I feel like it's a lot of clapter. It's like people clapping, but it's not really a lot of funniness.
Of course, if our elected leaders won't do anything about gun violence, we're obviously going to need to elect new leaders. And that process is already underway with the midterm primaries. Last night, there were some big results, including Georgia Democrats making their pick for governor, Stacey Abrams.
I mean, did she have anybody really running against her?
Abrams
has not accomplished really much. She's basically said that the election was stolen from her in Georgia and continuously walks around as if she is the governor of Georgia and never let it go. Talk about the election is rigged. Hypocrisy much? We know whose side he's on. This is clearly just Democrat propaganda. I don't want to listen to this guy anymore. I just, I think you pretty much get the gist of it. But you let me know. Did you hear a solution there? Did he offer the wisdom? Did he offer a simple, difficult solution that would just fix mass shootings? A realistic one? You judge for yourself. You put it down in the comment section below. Do you think Stephen Colbert is right? Does he have it figured out? Maybe I'm missing something. I'm always open for dialogue and seeing where I could be wrong. But based on my knowledge of the circumstance, I just don't see this guy offering any real solution. Now, on top of that, if you made it this far, you're a real one, and hit that like button before you go. And if you're new to the channel, of course, always subscribe. With that out of the way, peace and glory, everybody. Be peaceful and be great. Until next time, I'm out.
1 in a million to 1 villain. Too hot to be in the kitchen, I'll end up melting the ceiling.